Class is now in session. I'm Professor Hockey, and today we'll be discussing the game between the Sharks and the Coyotes, in which the Sharks managed to win 5-3. And this game, sort of like the past few games that the Sharks have played, it started off very, very well in the first period. The Sharks got a couple of goals. Pavelski's 19th, which is definitely getting him close to the league lead. I believe it's Ovechkin with 22. Couture's 10th as well. That put the Sharks up 2-0, and what was even better, they were basically completely nullifying the Coyotes. They were unable to get really anything generated at all in the first period. Dell had one of the easier first periods that I've seen this season from a goaltender. He really didn't have to do too much, and for any normal team, I guess you could say that it was looking like they might be able to cruise to an easy victory. However, if there's anything that we have learned this season from the San Jose Sharks, is to not be comfortable with any lead, whether that be 1 goal, 2 goal, 3 goals, even probably 4 goals or 5 goals, although I don't think we have seen that this season being given up. The Sharks then actually get up to 3-0. It's Evander Kane, a very nice sort of use of his speed to be able to get one past Adin Hill. But that's when it started to go the other way. And it wasn't even necessarily that the Coyotes were putting on so much pressure that the Sharks couldn't help it and they just end up giving bleeding chances or anything like that. Actually, the Sharks still played a pretty solid defensive game for the rest of the game, but it's just that they gave up a couple of chances and the Coyotes managed to capitalize on basically every single one almost. Nick Schmaltz on the power play, then it was Richardson, as well as Panic earlier on in the third period that made it 3-3. Luckily for the San Jose Sharks, after about a 5 or so minute section of this third period in which there was 0 whistles, which basically forces both teams to continuously roll lines because you don't get that little 30-second, 45-second break between whistles to be able to rest your guys and be able to send back a first line after one shift off kind of thing. And it's Riddle, his first NHL goal. He managed to score, put the Sharks up by 1, and it looks like, this is a goal scored by a rookie, this is his first NHL season, energized the bench or something like that, but that didn't end up being the case, as the Coyotes basically the next shift, 20 seconds later, Clayton Keller comes within inches of tying this game back up at 4, and so it just seems to be some sort of mental problem with the San Jose Sharks. Luckily for them, this puck doesn't go in. They end up holding the lead for the last few minutes of the game. Tomas Riddle adds the empty net, and the Sharks managed to get the 2 points, which was especially important, especially since the Vegas Golden Knights lost earlier today to the Los Angeles Kings. So this allows the Sharks to climb back up in the divisional standings. The first thing I'd like to talk about is Aaron Dell. He did not have a very good game. You can't really blame him on the Schmaltz or Richardson one, but the thing is that the Sharks gave up not that many great chances. The Coyotes really didn't have too much going in this game, and Aaron Dell didn't really come up with a big save at any point in this game, besides maybe the Clayton Keller one that I mentioned earlier that would have made it 4-4, although you could even argue if that was necessarily a save or it's just sort of just Clayton Keller shoots it into him or anything like that. But you can give it, even if you give him that save, there wasn't really much else. As I said, you can't really blame him for the Schmaltz one, you can't really blame him for the Richardson one, but the Panic one was sort of like the goal that Jones let in against Heiskanen the previous night. It was not a very good goal, probably even worse, and it was the goal that ends up tying the game at 3, and it sort of seems like maybe a bit of a trend here for the San Jose Sharks that they're giving up these leads, and it was a soft goal by their goaltender, this time their backup goalie, like Jones did in the previous night, and it's really something that the Sharks just in general as a whole team need to get dealt with, and I'll get to that a bit later. But first I'd like to talk about next is Riddle and sort of by extension Suomela. Now Riddle, he's played a few games this season thus far when players are injured or when Suomela ends up getting healthy scratched, and he hasn't ever really been that impressive at any point during the season, I would say. However, this game did look a bit different. He was not flying, but he was playing rather well, although I think just as a whole the Sharks were playing rather well for the majority of this game, as the Coyotes didn't really get much generated, as I said. But Riddle ends up getting this goal that ends up being the game winner, so his first NHL goal is his first game-winning goal, which was certainly nice for him, and it'll be interesting to see. It's very likely that DeBoer keeps him in the lineup, but it'll be interesting to see if Suomela actually manages to draw back in, because I gave reasoning for the reason that Goodrow and Carlson seemed to be staying in the lineup for so long, even when they weren't doing much of anything offensively, is because that the Sharks' penalty kill had been so good that you didn't really have much of a justification to take 2 players who play the penalty kills somewhat frequently, one of them out of the lineup. But now that the Sharks' penalty kill has been struggling as of late, they gave up another power play goal here tonight against the Arizona Coyotes. maybe this is a time to finally bench one of number 23 or number 68 to get Suomela back into the game, and you can run maybe a fourth line of Riddle, Suomela, and Goodrow, or of course Riddle, Suomela, and Melker Karlsson, because now you don't really have much of a justification. They have been somewhat better as of late, these two players, but still, Suomela should probably be a player who by game 82 is sort of a mainstay in the lineup. Maybe in the playoffs he gets healthy scratched to the point for a more, reliable option like Melker Karlsson, but he should hopefully be somewhat of a mainstay, as I said, sort of like Timo Meier has been in the past couple of years, but prior to this sort of breakout year, I guess you could say. And so it'll be interesting to see. It's likely Riddle stays in the lineup, but I'm wanting to see what De Boer decides to do with Suomela, because he is certainly, out of these four players, Riddle, Suomela, Karlsson, and Goodrow, the one who has the most offensive upside. Finally, we have to talk about the Sharks and their leads this season. The Sharks it's no secret that the Sharks just seem to be giving up so many leads during many games. I mean, here tonight was sort of the epitome of that. They gave up a 3-goal lead. We'll recall earlier on this season, the Sharks played against the Nashville Predators, had a 3-goal lead, ended up making it 4-3 Predators. Sharks managed to win the game 5-4, but still giving up 4 unanswered after they had a lead. Many other games this season as well, and it was an interesting comment that De Boer made at the end of the Nashville one, or sometime after the Nashville one, and it was because that Craig Smith's goal that made it 3-1 Sharks and started that comeback for the Predators. It was sort of a kick-in type of goal, gritty type of dirty garbage type of, lucky, I guess you could say, goal. And De Boer said that if the goal had been a very nice snipe or a very nice play, that the Sharks bench would have still been okay and that they'd been able to hold that lead. But the fact that it was this type of goal actually demoralized the bench and made it so that the Predators were able to come back into this game. And that's certainly a huge mental issue. And it came back here again tonight as Schmaltz's goal. It wasn't the prettiest goal. Maybe Clayton Keller was meaning to get this pass through to Schmaltz. That would have been a very nice play, but it really did look like he sort of fanned on his shot and it came right to Nick Schmaltz. Maybe this is actually a very nice goal, but it seemed as though the Sharks did not respond to it. And so maybe it was actually, they felt that it was not a very nice goal. And it seems like they had that same problem that they did in Nashville, where because that this was sort of a bit of a demoralizing type of goal, they end up folding a bit, taking their foot off the gas and giving up a couple of these chances. And Aaron Dell was not able to come up with any real big saves for the Sharks. And moving on into the next game that they'll play again on Monday night against the New Jersey Devils, remember that the previous game they played against the Devils earlier on this season, they had a 2-1 lead moving into the third period, ended up letting up 2 early goals in the third. Devils took the 3-2 lead and ended up holding that score for the rest of the game. And you look at some of the best teams in the NHL year in and year out, you look at the stats like leading after 1, leading after 2, or first goal of the game type of stats, and you can see some teams, let's say leading after 2, could be 33-1-1 or some insane winning percentage. And the San Jose Sharks, those stats don't match up with some of the best teams in the league. This seems to be some sort of mental issue that the Sharks have not yet faced before. I mean, normally under De Boer, they have been very good at shutting down the game. Even 1-goal leads have been relatively safe with the Sharks. Obviously, you're never safe with a 1-goal lead, any team, but you're still definitely you feel a lot more secure last year with a 1-goal lead than even this year with maybe even a 2-goal lead at this point with the Sharks, because it seems as though any time they have a lead in any game, it's at any point at a risk of being caught up by the other team, no matter if you're against the Nashville Predators, one of the best teams in the league, or the Arizona Coyotes, one of the lower tier teams in the league. But that will do it for this review. As I said, the Sharks will be back in action against the New Jersey Devils on Monday. They'll look to sort of try and hold the lead at some point in this game. If they get a lead, they don't want to make the same mistake that they did against the Devils earlier on this season. Luckily for the Sharks, they will be back at home for that one, and they'll look. I believe they'll be staying at home for at least a small extended period of time. Class dismissed.